All right then, hello, let's get started. Welcome to Disability in Screenwriting. This is a workshop that we host every couple of weeks on ScriptCamp, where, again, we just talk about disability. We talk about disabled characters that already exist in the media. But in particular, we talk about you guys and the characters that you are making who are disabled, and try and workshop them, try and make them a bit more 3D. Try and make them a bit more whole. And my name is Joel, my co-host is Willow, and together we just try and make them more realistic. I might focus a little bit on the sort of particular disability and making sure that it's good representation, and I know that Willow likes to focus on the things aside from disability, and making sure that the disability, the whole character isn't just disability, essentially. And we also have Nacho here, who's really good at analysis. So between the three of us, we're quite good. I've been told. Welcome along. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter, then check the link in the description to join us on Discord, where you'll be able to take part more easily. Although, if you prefer to watch along, we will be keeping an eye on the chat. As always, we have a couple guidelines which I'll just take you through. We also have a disclaimer, just to say that this will contain, we will be discussing sensitive topics that may trigger you, which include, for example, the mention of suicide, self-harm, substance abuse, mental health and trauma. And if you feel that at any point it's getting a bit heavy for you, then feel free to leave without without feeling the need to explain yourself. Essentially, that is absolutely okay. I'm trying to load up my PowerPoint so that I can show you the guidelines. But essentially, I'll just talk you through them. Essentially, we want to be respectful to everyone, and making sure that the questions that we're asking are asked in a respectful way, and making sure to listen to everyone. That's basically the guidelines summed up into a couple of sentences. So let's just get right into it. And I wonder if anyone has any characters that they want to share. Any stories, any...
I have something.
Yeah, go ahead, Lasagna.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a mermaid in a wheelchair because she is above water at the moment. And I guess I wanted to discuss this with you because I don't really know how wheelchairs work, I'll be honest.
Okay.
I don't know too much about it. But I don't really know specifically what I want to talk about. I think I talked to you about this in DMs, so I don't know why I said anything now.
Well, no, it's good to bring it up here because I'm not being disabled, but I'm not the only wheelchair user in the world. Maybe there's someone watching or someone in the Discord who uses a wheelchair. But yeah, I think, why don't you, I don't know, why don't you tell us a bit more about the story and I guess how, because I guess she's in a wheelchair because she can't walk, because she's a mermaid, which makes sense. How is it that she got the wheelchair in the first place, I wonder?
She's like a journalist. She wants to see the world, like a little vlogger kind of character. So she sort of hops on a train and just, leaves her home just so she can explore the above world,
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what happens to her, and that's why she's above ground. That's why she's now in a wheelchair so she can get around. And I guess we did talk about upper body strength, and yeah, I guess she'd use her tail more, not her arms. So now I'm just like, okay, uh, what do I do now? I do have like another character there that's sort of like her foil, her friend and foil, just sort of like someone who's letting her stay with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they could like push her around, I suppose.
Yeah. I would say that pushing
Yeah,
around, being pushed around is great. But there is a part of that means that your independence gets taken away. That's
yeah.
a part of being a wheelchair user. And maybe you could mention how that changes things for your mermaid. Um, and maybe there's a bit of
Right.
because she wants to be independent in traveling, and she wants to do what no other mermaid has done before, and look around above ground and this sort of thing. But actually, she can't do that independently. Maybe that could be something that a line that you go down. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's great because like back home she was sort of like the baby of the family, so it's like she never really had independence in the first place, so this is no different and she's frustrated with it, maybe.
Oh, that's good.
Uh,
Yeah. So she's never really been independent. So she's moving away from family to be independent only to find that yeah, she can't be independent. That's really good actually.
yeah, so I don't know, a whole fucking training session where she's just like, I'm going to work out so hard.
Yeah.
Like
Remind me, is
her
this a
arms and stuff.
feature or a
Pilot, TV
okay?
pilot right now.
Okay, cool. So I guess something that you would have to figure out is the sort of the structure and the you know so you've got a bit of a plot for the pilot. What was I beginning to think a little bit at least about what might happen in the rest of the series, and what would an average episode look like?
I do have like a sort of series logline
Mm-hmm.
if you want if you
Yeah.
want that. I will send it in. It
Cool.
I will say this project doesn't have much to do with her disability. It's just how she be.
Okay.
um yeah, let me go get it. Oh God, the new updates on Discord are making it hard to navigate, I tell you. Goodness.
Sometimes I wish apps would just tell you when they're going to update before they actually do it. Give you some warning.
Yeah, it is this idea. Yeah, so basically, I do have an idea now to show like her frustrations in the first episode. Maybe they get into some trouble and it's just like the the hermit's sort of like, I'm not gonna let you get hurt, and like leaves her there and she's just like, take me with you. She's just like frustrated with them or something because like her agency is taken away and sort of like she's just left there, or she's like taken in a different direction that she doesn't want to go in or something. So I do wonder what to do with her regarding that feeling.
All right. Anyone want
Mm,
to give any advice on that? Maybe.
I guess. Oh,
Let me read the logline. Mrs. Soulbound. Series logline.
yeah.
When the gods neglect a magical plague threatening the lives of mortal civilization, a jaded hermit must travel the globe with a sheltered mermaid in order to find the cure defended by the gods. Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's
the
the logline.
protagonist is the hermit?
No, they're both the protagonists.
Okay. Okay then. I
All
thought
all I
this
had to
hermit.
add
So go on, Mitch.
All I had to add was the possibility of you mentioned her upper arms might not be as strong as her tail. Well, you could probably do a thing with like a push thing on the front of her chair, and it like connects to something, like just like like a push. Like what? I'm trying to think. Like I'm trying to think of what
Maybe
device. Yeah,
maybe it's like a
something that she can push
modification.
and like yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
it's like something they add to her.
fun fantasy modifications are always cool, but something like that's like that practical and that like, yeah, that is how that would work. You just push the thing. She can push it with her tail. She can just slap it with her tail,
Yeah,
and it just,
it could be like a modification they make later on when she expresses like
yeah.
her frustrations.
And then she can get super fast and maybe like jump into something in the finale. You know, like they get on the back of her and she just like push, and then like jump into something. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds cool. That does sound cool. I like that idea. So it's a modification they make on her wheelchair so she can push herself. With her limited upper body strength, she can just use her tail instead.
Yeah, and then maybe like something with the arms to like steer.
Yeah.
Just like usually just string to like maneuver something is like enough, like a heavy duty loop rope thing.
Yeah, I was planning for her to be like some type that more relies on like magic and stuff. Uh, so might have something to do with magic, who knows? But like the practical modifications or the hermit builds it or something. I don't really know. But thank you. I think I've got an inkling now.
Cool.
So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, that's good. Glad we could help. Yeah, a fantasy style wheelchair is cool. A bit like your dragon wheelchair, which is well, actually, I'm not sure that's fantasy particularly. It's not a normal wheelchair, 'cause it's a dragon, but it's I think a dog style wheelchair, isn't it? In Dragon it's on the Makara.
Yep. One of the really cool things about wheelchairs is how each one is individualized for the user and adjusted for the user. What type of wheelchair works for one won't work for somebody else, and so you don't have to make it a typical wheelchair that we know of. You can make it in any way that would be beneficial specifically to the mermaid.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
that's good.
You can adjust the size. Unfortunately, though, that tends to cost a lot of money to not have a generic um a generic wheelchair. Which is unfortunate. So maybe that could be another obstacle, or maybe you just gloss over it. As some people do. But yeah, wheelchairs are ridiculously expensive. And
It's okay. Glasses are too. How the fact that we have to pay so much to function.
yeah,
My God. Maybe I will put that difficulty in there, the fact that it's too expensive.
yeah, and so you end up with a very generic wheelchair that's not
And they're just
functional. Yeah,
like raising money maybe in one episode for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
That
will
feels
express her frustrations in the pilot, but I don't know if I'll like provide the solution in the pilot. Maybe if I
yeah,
make like a whole sketchbook, I'll be like, this is an episode idea. They try to raise money for her wheelchair.
yeah. Cool.
Well, that's all from me, I think. Thank you
Alright,
for your
cool.
help.
Cool. Alright, then let's open up the floor again to anyone who's got any themes of disability in their work. Alright, if no one's got any other nothing else they want to workshop, maybe we'll do yeah, quiet day. That's fine. I knew we would have quiet days. Yeah, maybe we can do a character review of someone of a disabled character in the media already. We can discuss them. Either that or we can do another picture prompt that we did in the past. Up to you guys. What do you want to do?
Maybe like post my thing real quick and then like go with the character. Because I
Okay,
know
yeah,
you said it
sure.
wouldn't be as much this time, but I still think that this is a good opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we can do that.
So I was asking about this originally because I wasn't sure how sensitive it was, but people told me that it's all right. There's outdated stuff in there, and yeah, this isn't really a log line. It's just kind of a general description.
Okay.
Person with alters has an alter who currently isn't showing itself. Poor personality whose happiness drives the happiness of the others lacks confidence. It's been worse recently since his girlfriend broke up with him upon learning about his. However, the alter that isn't showing itself is a total charisma machine. Is sort of reverse Tyler Durden, making him more popular without him knowing. And it's like the goal was something a little bit raunchy, like it has potential to be a little bit raunchy, but not like at the expense of anyone, you know?
Okay.
Like something more akin to like I'm trying to think what would be an example of that, but you know, like something really goofy and has a lot of like the notes of all that, but like when you actually analyze it with its material and how it approaches, that was the goal. Like this person's thing is not the joke. The joke is like this character that keeps coming up is so like Johnny Bravo, you know, Jersey Shore esque, and just the complete opposite of the other guy, the complete
Okay.
opposite of the main personality.
I don't know who those characters are. Tyler Durden and
Tyler Durden is the villain from Fight Club, and he's actually like basically sort of Fight Club's not trying to portray anything real with that. It unfortunately goes for just like its own thing, but he's part of the main character. The main character doesn't know until it's too late. So when he goes out to try to find Tyler Durden,
okay. So how would you
him
describe?
because they think it's part of the thing because they've been seeing him. What was that?
Sorry, I think someone's internet's a bit rubbish. I think my internet's cutting out a bit. So I was just trying to work out because it's reverse Tyler Durden. I don't know who Tyler Durden is.
So Tyler Durden kind of ruined this guy's life by showing up and being too much of like a macho. You know, like he's kind of the similar idea where it's like there's this one alternate personality that's like helping this person gain confidence, but the difference is that when this one's going to be more helpful, Tyler tries to take over.
No.
Like I said, Fight Club's not very respectful about what he's trying to portray.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a chance to make something positive from this, though, even if it's a little
Right.
like it's something can be goofy, but like still uplifting.
Still
I guess
respectful.
positive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let me read this, and now I know who Tyler Durden is. My ultimate isn't showing itself is a total charisma machine. the opposite of
Yeah, I'm
okay.
sorry about the personality.
Yeah, all right. I guess I saw this asked by someone else, but I guess the main question at this point is, is if they're not showing themselves much, how is it that they are changing this, well, these people, other alters' lives? How is that
I
change
was under the
happening?
impression that there were such alters that people don't remember. If I'm wrong about that, then you can tell me.
Yeah, so there are alters who don't really show themselves. But I mean, if they're not showing themselves to be, oh, okay, so maybe they're not saying that they're different people. Is that what you mean? Or
Maybe if
okay,
that's how that would work, I don't know.
okay. We'll get into more detail about this in a couple of weeks, and I'll cover all of this, but
Yeah,
I'll cover a bit of it now. But you've got different alters who, as Lasagna says, they're not just personalities. They're cool
yeah,
personalities. They are separate people,
yeah,
with their own names, their own pronouns. So, I would,
yeah,
get rid of it yet because most alters will identify as he, she, they.
yeah.
Um, I will also say, um, verse. I was going to say something else, just general thought. Oh yeah, so alters might not always front, or they might not always, take control of a body, but they can still be heard by other alters. Maybe this
Yeah,
core or this main personality, main identity that you're talking about, often called the host.
yeah,
So maybe that's what's happening. Um, what can also sometimes happen, which is what I thought you meant initially. What can happen is you have alters who don't reveal themselves even to the other alters. They might,
yeah,
they might keep themselves completely hidden. In which case, it is very difficult if they're not um if they're not known by anyone and they don't come out into the front. Then how do they start changing up someone's life essentially? Um,
yeah,
So yeah, maybe make that a little clearer about who it is that they're not showing themselves to.
yeah. I mean, I've considered that like if it's not just them forgetting it because of that, maybe it's them forgetting it out of just pure like 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 too hard of a party last night. You wake up and you don't remember anything. That
Right.
classic thing, as opposed to like, oh, the altar is the one making, or the other, like as opposed to like it being the fault of this, person. It's instead just the general fault of like, yeah, it's a party that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And maybe like
Okay.
for a bit this person doesn't know that and is just like assuming like, oh, it's covering, oh, I need to figure out how to uncover this, and it's just like, no, you just don't need to drink so much, just don't do that. Or just like like a simple solution in plain sight. Well, everyone he thinks it's like, something, he thinks it's something that's like a little bit more complex than it is, and it just ends up being like, I don't know. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So part of the disorder is amnesia. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
When other alters front, if one alter fronts, the other alters generally won't remember much about it. And that's usually how people figure out that they have a condition in the first place. So yeah, amnesia definitely fits the criteria of the diagnosis essentially. The difficulty I think when you're creating a character with the ID is figuring out all of the different personalities, figuring out what they enjoy, their hobbies, and all that sort of thing. Because essentially you're creating multiple characters who all share a body. And so yeah, I
Yeah,
would say make sure that you imagine each alter as a separate character. Um,
yeah. You said
because
that
they're all taught slightly
sometimes they can hear
differently.
each other.
Yeah, they can. Not always, so
So,
sometimes they will.
well, when you say hear, like, is it a matter of like how does that work out? Like, is it a matter of like they each separately are speaking on something, hear it, or is that like
Okay, so that's something that I'm gonna do more research. From my
okay?
understanding, and
Because
if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself later on.
that
But from
because
my
yeah.
understanding, they hear the words, and from the sorts of things that are being said, they can work out who's saying what. I'm not sure if voices sound different. I will have to check that. But yeah, so they can sort of sometimes work out who's saying what by how it's being said and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Although sometimes some systems have more vivid,
So
you know,
it
can
wouldn't be
recognize easier.
too out of. It wouldn't be too like crazy of representation to maybe have like what I was imagining was every now and then we see the alters as their own people just kind of sitting in a room, and it's not the idea that they're actually seen. Maybe like the character's back is always to the room when it's happening, and it's more like a visualization technique than anything. But like you mentioned the hearing, and I was like, oh well, that could be like the way that works. So like just has his back to the rest of the room, and over here is this personality, over here is that personality. This one's in the corner solving a Rubik's cube. This one's over here polishing her nails. You know,
Okay, yeah, that could be a way of showing it.
that's not awful.
No,
It's not
that's
bad.
so I will try and find a list of content creators who have a condition. But yeah, sometimes there's what's described as an inner world where you can see
Yeah.
you know, other alters. Not every alter has that ability, but some people have like a living room, and you know that's where everyone hangs out. And sometimes alters have their own bedrooms, and you know different things. Each person will experience it differently. And I'll try and send some content creators who talk about that a lot. Yeah, so it's not crazy to you know to show the inner world on screen. Yeah,
Okay. That helps a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Really.
I will send you a link to a really cool site that talks a lot about the ID. Uh,
So I've now listening to you talk about it, I understand. I understand a lot more. I don't know the proper words of describing things. Um, um, with people with DID, like the terminology and whatnot, jargon. But in your description, one thing that kept confusing me and tripping me up is just the phrase of showing itself. In this case, it would be showing himself.
Yeah.
Those words sound like they never interact in public. That they never take over the body. They just are inside, like more like a subconscious. I don't know how to describe it. I think my issues with the phrase of showing himself, because that just sounds like they never go into public.
Like
Is there
who
a
doesn't
different
go?
word we can use to or something um that would more show that it is the public
Yeah.
who sees them,
Yeah.
but not the person, not the host or not the other alters.
Yeah. Yeah. I Yeah, that is a better overall. There should be something that should capture that. I just don't know what yet. And that's like that's a lot of this process I've been finding for the right word. There should be something about that. And if I look around through people who talk about DID online, probably have some good advice on that. So I don't know yet. I'll try to find that word, find the phrase. It's not. So was that?
What about like like calling it an unknown alter? An unknown alter is a total charisma machine. Something with that.
Yeah, that would help. Like unknown, just like yeah, like they don't know who he is yet, or maybe like one of them kind of does, and I don't know yet. I like now that like the idea of like the certain alters. I've heard that like certain alters can access these ones that don't always speak to the host, that don't always like interact, and so like they'll know that they're there and not really be able to interact, and that kind of adds like an interesting maybe couple layers of mystery to it, like as more of the personalities here, more of the one that the host can't see but is coming out publicly, is like publicly, going to parties and stuff. Yeah, the terminology here is the hard part because I don't know any of it. I'm trying to learn it, but it's it's
Yeah, I personally don't have any problem with the terminology other than being described as an it, but it's just the showing.
yeah. Whoops.
The specific word of showing.
Yeah.
Kind of misleading.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing I would wonder if I'm watching this. All right, so like so this unknown alter, say, goes to a party and charismatic and has a blast and everyone loves him. Then when one of the other alters then goes out and interacts with those people and someone says, hey, oh my God, would that be having, I assume, they've uncovered each of their individual alters? Would that automatically send up a red flag of previous experience of, like, is there another alter or something? Like, if they're going through something that they didn't experience, but the outside world didn't experience, would that be a clue? Like, I would assume that
Like
as they uncover,
like, yeah, it would be a clue, but if you like if it would reveal right then that what's happening and like make it all click, I don't really know. I'm not sure about that. Like actually,
I think it would depend on how they discover all of their other alters. Because if this has been a thing and where someone had like amnesia and then they heard about it or something and then later discovered that one of these alters exist, then this time it would kind of make sense that that would be an initial assumption. I think it all depends on how they initially discovered their initial alters.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to find stories on that because I'm sure there are stories of alter discovery online.
Yeah, there are.
Probably really
Some
believe.
people don't discover it per se. Some people just because I guess if you have the condition from a young age, you'll sort of often have it from um the age of around 8. And so sometimes, not always, but sometimes it can be quite normal to be able to hear the other alters and not realize that there's anything different. So sometimes that happens. It's not so much a discovery, but yeah, more of a yeah, we are different in this way. So that might be something that you find.
Okay. Thank you. That's pretty much all I have. Guys, just my perspective. This might not. I mean, I think it could be a fun comedy, regardless. Like if I get it right and then just kind of half write it, as long as I get like the core stuff right, I think it would be cool. I think it would be a nice thing.
Yeah.
Like as long as I just get like the stuff correct,
Yeah,
I think that would
absolutely.
be in itself a useful endeavor.
I think that
Yeah.
this would be a lot of fun, and I love the premise of it, and it's kind of a um I, I don't know, I really really like this. Like it just it shows I can't think, I can't talk, but it's like using the disability in a unique and entertaining way while still being respectful to it. And that's something I really like.
I don't remember if anything came to mind when I was thinking about it. I want to say I've seen something somewhere, but I don't know.
All right. That's everything on that topic. And yeah, let's open up the floor
What was
again.
that?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Sorry.
You're just fine.
Sometimes my microphone on Discord decides not to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's everything, let's move on.
Yeah.
And put the floor back up to anyone with any disabled characters. And again, if you are watching on Twitch, then you can join us on Discord, because I think we have a couple of people there who have some ideas. Hi, Tallulah. I think you came from Twitch. If you would like to talk about the disabled character, you're more than welcome to. Are you there? I can see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you at the moment. Alright, in that case, let's do a character review. I don't think we've done these before. This is an idea that we had, me and Willow. We came up with a list of different disabled characters, and if there's any that you want to talk about and discuss whether that representation was done in a positive way. Let's get our list here. And yeah, we'll try and figure out if there's one that as many people know of as possible. There we go. Alright, so yeah, any on the list that you see that maybe we want to talk about? There's quite a long list.
North Paladin.
Who's that?
North
Hello.
Paladin
Oh,
joined.
Paladin, hello.
Hey there.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Paladin. Welcome, Tallulah. There is a chat that you are welcome to chime in on, and I don't quite know how to get to it. Describe how to get to it, but yeah, if you can't use your mic or anything, feel free to chat.
Yeah. I wonder how many of you have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's something I watched recently, or binge watched, so I'm gonna have to watch it again to actually remind myself of half the episodes. If anyone's seen that, feel free to unmute and let us know what you thought of the representation. Like, there are a couple disabled characters there.
Well, as a blind person, and as Toph is a blind person, I'm not sure how I feel about the representation because she basically wasn't blind. Because she basically saw with her feet. I like her as a character, but as representation, I guess I'd sit here and be like, well, I don't see shit with my feet. Like, that'd be pretty convenient, but no. So it's sort of like they made her blind without having any of the troubles of being blind, aside from a few comedic moments where she's like, I'm blind, you know? So while I like her, I don't think she's necessarily good representation. Yeah, that's how I feel about characters they decide to make blind but not actually blind. It happens. I feel like it's happened with Toph and another character I might know.
Daredevil.
Yeah,
Daredevil.
Yeah,
I
Daredevil.
don't know Daredevil, but I assume you're right.
Yeah, Daredevil is a Marvel superhero. Marvel Legends, I think. And he's blind. I've not actually seen it. I just know that he's blind and somehow sees, like, has a spider sense, but not. He made an appearance
Oh, I
in
remember this guy from like a
No Way
meme
Home,
video.
Spider-Man.
I remember him from like a funny video I watched, which was like a parody. Yeah, okay, I remember him.
Right.
But Tallulah seems like they have something to talk about, so like I don't know.
Let's
We
read
can
the
go back
message.
to that instead of talking about characters, maybe.
And yeah, we're always trying to prioritize all characters over characters that already exist. Tallulah says, "Hi, I'm Tallulah. I'm working on a sci-fi novel in which one of my main characters undergoes a limb difference after a physical attack. As a limb typical person, I want to write this character as respectfully as possible." Cool. Yeah, we welcome all.
And hi, I'm actually here. I just wanted to like keep my mic muted to be respectful.
All right, yeah, you're more than welcome to join in. Because this workshop works a lot better when there's people talking, as I've always found. But yeah, so you're in the right place. We do talk about disabilities of all kinds. So yeah, maybe you want to talk about your projects with Tallulah, and we can workshop it together, maybe.
At first, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Okay, so my sci-fi novel takes place at a mutant academy. It's kind of like X-Men meets Mean Girls. The first, okay, I'm sorry, the character I'm referencing. So first, both her parents died, and then she got shot in her arm, and she lost so much blood that they had to cut the arm off, or basically to save her life. And so her arc is about adjusting to a bionic. And because I'm like a limb typical, so to speak, I really want to write her as realistically as possible. But with everything going on, I can't imagine that she's gonna like dive completely head first into this new atmosphere that she'll need time to adjust. Especially she's also grieving her parents as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like your character has a lot of change to sort of process. As you say, grieving her parents, but also the loss of an arm. So she's lost three things, all by the sounds of it very close together. And so it's possible that she might have PTSD from, trying to process everything and all of that, all of that trauma that she's been through. It's possible that there are other side effects. Actually, if you lose an arm, you have to have physical therapy to relearn to walk because your balance has changed. If you lose your right arm, for example, your left side will be heavier than your right side. And those different things. There's lots of other side effects, and so actually, despite the fact that her legs aren't directly affected, um, she'll have to relearn a lot of. Oopsie, so that's an alarm going off. She'll have to, live with. Sorry. Yeah, she'll have to relearn a lot of things and just doing the very basic things, and that can be very frustrating. So yeah. Ms. Annie says maybe to help her along the process, she has a sort of mentor or friends, or even a counsellor that can provide comfort or advice, which could help her come to terms with it and lessen her depression, maybe. Since you're doing a more X-Men route, I imagine mentors would be around to help her, maybe a physical therapist type of guy. Yeah, some sort of mentor to get her out of that depression that she might fall in. The guy who built the arm, he actually helps her through the process, but I realised that I need to have her deal with her emotions regarding her parents, yeah. So maybe having a second character who's more like a friend that she meets, that might be really helpful to your protagonist. Who, I don't know, maybe the same
So
age, or yeah, go on.
yeah, so she's actually one of four protagonists. It's kind of supposed to be an ensemble cast, so to speak, because it's like 4 different stories, but they each have their own kind of separate conflict they're going through during the book. And so her conflict is she's just trying to adjust to the arm. And I did write this one scene. It was inspired by a story that someone else went through where the person who the story was inspired by. So she said one time in public, because she has a bionic, but she really don't use it that much. She took her arm off in public, and someone really told her, basically asked her if she could put it back on. It was more so for their comfortability instead of hers.
Yeah.
And so I did write something similar to that in my story. Although as a writer, I thought that does seem kind of ableist, but then I remember that was a point of the
Yeah.
character who basically asked her to put it back on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Some people do ask people to have their mobility aids and to use them for their own comfort. As Ernie says, it doesn't just have to be friends. It could be her just going through the 5 stages of grief, which can take a long time to go through depending on the person. Can also have an incident happen that pushes her into coming to terms with her parents' death. So yeah, as Lazan was saying, there's multiple ways for her to go through this grieving process. Even though, well, she has no her parents, but there's a separate grief process for her arm. And then coming to terms with that loss. You also highlighted something about her sort of, I guess, resentment to her bionic arm and how she doesn't want to wear it, but sort of, for some reason or other, is made to, or, is supposed to, or
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't necessarily know if it's a resentment. I know she's because the way she's gone through mentally is like first she lost her parents, then she lost her arm, and because she's practically an orphan, she's kind of forced to go to this school with people who have these abilities. And along with that, she finds out her mom was a mutant too, but her mom was more of what I call human passing. So, and because of the way her mother's powers were, no one would have known had she not been told. And so I was scared that because she's going through all that, she would come up as this, depressed, disabled girl trope. And I was really didn't want to do that because I it would be offensive to someone who has gone through a limb difference. But again, I never gone through a limb difference, so I don't know what the emotional process of that is. And I just want to be basically respectful as possible. And I just really want to know someone what would offend someone who does have a limb difference, and what it's like. Basically, I just want to be respectful as possible.
Yeah, of course. So I think that Willow in the chat has sent a a video or a creator of someone who's got a limb difference. And I would sort of look for content creators on YouTube, on TikTok, who have limb differences because they do talk about it a lot. So Footless Joe, which is who Willow sent in the chat just above. I have seen a couple of her videos where she talks about her sort of grieving process of losing that limb, and yeah. In terms of a persona, let me read North Paladin and Designer's comments. North Paladin says, I wonder if the guy who built when did I read that already? No. I wonder if the guy who built the arm could also have limbs that he built himself and help the main character along several fronts. That includes understanding her on the amputation and using a new arm. So yeah, having someone who's gone through a similar gone on a similar journey could really help her.
I actually never considered that, and I am like halfway through the book, but it's still at the point just such as that, and it's not the plot too much, but that idea does kind of help add to her storyline. And actually, I was building a romance between the two of them, so I think that might actually help as well. And on top of that, as far as like um personalities, I'm still actually trying to figure out her personality a bit. Um that's one thing because this I could say this situation made her sadder than what she normally would be because she really was like before this, happy girl who grew up with two parents, and now in a blink of an eye, that's all gone. And also recently I kind of realized, because I actually kind of wait for my characters to tell me so. I realized that growing up, her and her father used to do like upholstery, and because her father was a carpenter, they used to do upholstery and other stuff like that together. And after he died, she kind of stopped. And so the guy who like built the arm for her, he kind of tries to get her back into doing things like that.
Yeah.
But
Uh. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
and I was also mentioning that the arm that she lost, which is her right arm, that was also her dominant arm. So that's one of the reasons why he wants to help her get back into doing some of the things she used to do, just so she can learn to kind of be, in the lack of a better phrase, be one with it.
Yeah. If it's okay, Joel. Is it alright if I
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
add on to what I was saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I guess yeah. What came to my mind immediately when I was reading what you had said about like the what I said earlier about like the character who built the actual arm. Just like I that's where my mind was going immediately, is just having another character who like shares the experience that the main character is going through, like a very new experience for the main character, but just someone who has already gone through this sort of thing, kind of guiding them along in different ways. And maybe whatever it might be, like those different activities that the main character used to enjoy doing before they had this new arm. Maybe there can be scenes there where it's like this guy who built this arm and understands her on this level can show like, hey, like you don't have to be, you don't, it's a thing you have to learn to live with, but you don't have to be held back in that way, I suppose, right? Just like sort of like I guess almost in a way like sort of like showing her this like she can still like live and thrive and stuff like that with this new arm. It doesn't need to sort of just end there. Especially since you said that you were thinking of having a romance between the two characters. That can be, I think, a pretty interesting jumping off point as well too. Yeah,
Actually, that's
absolutely.
really helpful. Thank
I have
you.
a few questions I'd like to ask about your character. Um, you said that she is a mutant and she's not human passing mutant, right?
No, her mother was a human passing mutant, but her mother was an empath, and that's just like I'm trying to explain it because it's kind of a strange power. The best thing out the power I gave her is more like empathic healing. And so because she's able to heal people's hurt emotions, she was able to kind of hide a very mostly human town as a therapist. And so the character, she never knew her mother was a mutant until after her mother was killed by like this I want to say government thing because that sounds about right. I like a government secret program that would basically kill mutants and stuff. And so that's how she found out. And then the I call her the mentor character, but the adult character that kind of mentors all four girls. She's the one that kind of tells her this is where your mom went to school and stuff.
So my question is, like, does is your main character, the amputee, considered a mutant? Like, it would be really cool to for her to be a mutant before she loses her arm, and now she's a mutant minus an arm. It could have bad connotations if she loses her arm and then discovers that she's a mutant.
Yeah, I think I mean, because I haven't figured out how far I was gonna go with that, where if she was gonna, because her father is a human, and so I didn't know whether or not I was gonna ever find out if I was gonna go with her having powers as well. Because I did write in my notes recently that they don't know whether, because she said at one point that I'm not a mutant, and someone said, yeah, we don't know that yet. You still haven't got tested. So it's something like that. And as far as her being at the mutant school, it's like she's just there because she's basically an orphan.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
oh,
I've
hi.
got. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Lasagna. You want to jump in?
Yes, I do. So, since this was a life or death situation beforehand, you could try to just be like this mentor guy was in the same place as she was, was like transferring like some of his cybernetic limb somewhere, and like this, he sees this girl bleeding out, about to die. They have to remove her arm, and maybe these arms that he has sort of like they could completely reject someone who isn't a mutant or something like that. To like help her, and it just happens to work on her, and that's like how she finds out she was a mutant the whole time or something like that. Because like it seems that it could go like unnoticed by the person who is a mutant, like they don't know they have powers or something. uh I don't know, just an idea, because I don't if you want to make her a mutant beforehand but not notice or know because she's human passing, it could have
Yeah,
something to
that
do
was
with her arm.
yeah, that was something I was toying with, like if her arm should connect to her having these powers.
Yeah, so it could just be like they only work because she has these powers, and it's like able to channel them or something like that, while also like,
Honestly,
you know, being a limb.
honestly, you saying that just made something make sense to me, because for the longest time I was trying to figure out how did they know that her family was being attacked. And in my mind, I'm thinking if that situation accidentally triggered her abilities that she did not know about, that would have been a way for um the the secret agent program, the program. I'm sorry. So there's a thing at the school called a secret agent program, and they basically just go and do rescues and arrest mutants and protect other mutants from government officials. And so I'm thinking like how they would have been able to find her.
Yeah, so it could be like her powers were triggered, she's bleeding out, it's like all super intense, she could die kind of situation, and then they sedate her or something, and then they like try to help her. They give her this arm so she can control her powers better, and also like, you know, have a limb in place of her missing one. Could
Okay.
be like
Thank
that.
thank you. Y'all been very helpful.
No problem. I can't wait to see your story if you post it here, because like I think it's really fun. But
Thank
Yeah,
you. It's
indeed.
like yeah, it's like more characters, but I don't want to like get into it right now because I don't want to take away too much time
No, you're good.
from
Yeah,
the
well,
workshop.
we're good
Yeah.
for time.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joel.
And then I was just saying we're good for time if you wanted to share it, or go into more detail. What were you saying? I think it was off Paladin.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I said it in the chat. Like, I'm pretty partial to like science fiction stuff like that too. So I mean, hearing about like a cool idea just kind of like gets the brain flowing a bit more. So, if there's any notes that we have that help you, that just that's just kind of indicator that it's a pretty interesting story that kind of like gets you thinking a bit more. So yeah, that's because that's where my brain was going immediately with those two characters that you were talking about, of like the character who made the arm and stuff like that. Like that's like an interesting arc that I was already thinking of ideas for, like just as you're talking about it.
Yeah, so basically you're super creative and we like your idea.
Thank you. Now, I am going to mention this scene too because it's important, and I wrote it down, but also thought it could make me seem slightly ableist. But I said that she has like this cyberkinetic arm, and all the bells, but they're like, my version of how I think the plastics would fare inside of a music school.
I love
Except
that.
there's 4 of them instead of 3. And the one who her name is Becky, and she's gonna be the person supposed to be in charge of I call them factions. She's supposed to be in charge of the faction next year, and so she's getting groomed by the current faction leader. And the current faction leader basically tells Becky to um basically fry her arm. Becky is a technopath, so she can communicate and control technology, which the arm is considered technology. So she did actually destroy the arm. It was able to get fixed, but she did destroy the arm to the point that it actually hurt the person it was connected to.
I don't think it makes you seem ableist or anything to have like ableist characters because like they're the obvious bad guy here, you know? So I think you're good on that front.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. I mean, you could have a murder in your story, but that doesn't make you a murderer, you know. Yeah, and it's important to have ableism in your story sometimes to highlight why it's a problem. You know. So I wouldn't worry about having an ableist character. Yeah.
And there's a lot to communicate since you mentioned that Becky is being groomed to become like the next leader of the faction, so we could have like a message about the of terrible influences and like what they can make people do, what they can like influence people to do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny too because like I think, yeah, like I mean you have to don't need to shy away from having characters like that. I mean, I think for most of us here, like if we reflected like our beliefs and like the most like evil characters that we've written, we'd probably be like the most evil people walking on planet Earth if we reflected
Yeah.
what our characters thought all the time, you know? So
Yeah, and the thing about Becky is, and I was actually going back and forth about whether or not she was going to get a redemption arc because I was working on this like 2 years ago for the past 3 years, and honestly, I thought redemption arcs were getting played out in a manner of speaking, and so one day the team to just give her a corruption arc, and that actually made the story more fun for me.
Yeah. Power getting to your head, sort of like all these bad influences from everyone, power getting to your head, all this stuff, it could really fuck someone up. So I guess a corruption arc would be apt. But I also think a redemption arc could be had without it being played out or something. But like a redemption arc doesn't have to be doesn't have to be ended in like forgiveness or anything. Like it's not like she has to be forgiven. But she could possibly change or try to make it up to the main character or something like that. If you wanted to have a redemption arc, just her just being like, I literally injured this person. And and like having her like be at her lowest moment and realizing that she fucked up and that she's kind of terrible.
Yeah, I think personally, I'm not exactly against the redemption arcs. I do like redemption arcs, but I think that came from just this. I at a point started to feel like villains are just not villains anymore, and so I wanted to kind of, in a matter of speaking, bring back villains. Like, just let them come in and mess stuff up, and we can still give them like sad backstories. Because even Becky does have a kind of a sad backstory. But I really just felt it was more fun to just give her that corruption arc, and then she loses. Kind of a
Yeah.
spoiler alert, but yeah. And I'm sorry, I just really love this book. I'm having way too much fun with it. I almost want to gatekeep it.
Keep it. Yeah, you do that, honestly. I think it's a really good idea, and I love the sci-fi Mean Girls, honestly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
I
thanks for
got
bringing it. Oh, go on, Winner.
sorry. I had another question. Character gets a bionic arm. I'm curious as to what exactly the bionic arm does. Like, there's advantages and disadvantages to having a prosthetic.
Yeah.
It can become uncomfortable. It can become painful. Muscles change throughout the day, and so they need to be adjusted. So, what are some positives
Yeah,
and negatives of having the bionic arm for her?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I mentioned earlier that and this is because this happened to someone else, so it inspired me to write in my story. There's the scene where she did take the arm off, and because again I'm typical. I kind of didn't fully understand why, but because you mentioned that may be why in that moment she felt like she wanted to just take the arm off and kind of rest her shoulder a bit. But she was told by the main mean girl who was like Regina George to put the arm back on. But she did have someone in that moment who defended her and said, no, she wants to take it off. She's gonna take it off. Like, leave her alone. But as far as the bionic, I did kind of. It's in my notes that I put that the bionic has things like cannons, um lasers and things like that. And I even wrote a scene where she kind of carved her name with a laser on a locker. And so that's kind of my thought about like how the arm could work. Like, is that what you were looking for, or is it something else?
Um, kind of. Yes. I'm looking for like the advantages and disadvantages of say having a bionic arm. Because let's say a bionic arm is really really cool. Uh, they yeah they're badass and awesome. So then the question would kind of be, well, why doesn't everyone just want a bionic arm if they're so great and awesome and there's no problems or setbacks?
Um, I can't speak for everybody at the school because I figured out during the plotting process that the main theme of this book is literally privilege amongst a marginalized group. And so, and it is some race involved. So my four main characters, all of them are black girls, or all of them are dark skinned black girls. One of them, one of them come from another town that where mutants and humans live in harmony. So when she comes to the school, she's kind of surprised. And she's around other mutants. She's kind of surprised that, hey, not all mutants live in harmony. And one of the girls, she's like a she's a metamorphic adapter. So she's like other people who she shapeshifts into, but underneath what she looks like, she's actually hiding her true skin, which is green, and her hair is like green, but she hides because when she was a child, she almost got killed for not passing as a human. And so she goes through the rest of her life just passing as a human and live with that secret. And then the one we were just talking about, she's adjusting to a bionic, and all of those girls are like dark skinned Black girls, and neither of them are rich. And then you have the mean girls, they're all rich, white, well, what you would consider white as far as like human race, rich, white, able-bodied girls. And so because they have the power over the school, they assert their power by, being mean, keeping people under them. One of them is like the literal bully of the group because she's a pyrokinetic. And so that was kind of like what I was getting at. Like, it's supposed to be a war between those girls and like the four main girls.
Okay. Okay. I think I get it.
Again, I don't know exactly what you're looking for, so I'm trying to answer as sufficiently as possible.
What I guess what I'm looking for is kind of showing the disadvantages of a disability.
Yeah,
I guess I'm looking for a couple different things.
from things I've read, because someone sent me some information from like the someone sent me a website to actually look up information from, and they had some articles about like exercises you should do because you're gonna feel like pain in the areas that's adjusting to prosthetics and things like that. And so I do have points where I have the guy who we're shipping her with say like, oh, have you been doing your exercises? You need to do your exercises, or you need to do this certain thing and stuff like that. Not like he's pressuring her, but trying to get her to understand that you are adjusting and these things will help. So it's like he wants better for her. He wants her to get adjusted, but he also doesn't want to like push her. He's trying to be patient with her.
I think it sounds fascinating, and I hope you come back and I want to hear more. I want to see how this progresses because it sounds awesome.
Yes, thank you. Again, I just wanted to be very respectful as possible. And the people I've known who have living differences, they're no longer with me, so I couldn't ask them.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it, and if in the future you want more help, then we run this workshop on this Discord server every other week, and next week. So this workshop is for screenwriting in particular, and then our other workshop, which we'll run next week, is for is more
Yeah,
for
about that. I
novels
hope it's
and
okay
other
for me to be
media.
here, even though I'm not necessarily a screenwriter.
Oh yeah, you're welcome either way. When possible, we try and prioritize screenplays on this server and novels on the other server. But we're not gonna ban you. You're more than welcome. I will get the script sent to you. I'll try to say the right words any second now. I'll get the link for next week's event. I'll put it in the chat down here.
I just want to add to that. I'm glad that you jumped in here, even though you're not doing a screenplay. I'm really glad that you jumped in here to talk about your work. Kind of, there's not very many of us, and so you've given us a really good topic to discuss that is honestly relevant, no matter what medium is being used. So I'm honestly glad that you came, and writing is writing.
Yeah.
So,
and stories
yeah,
are
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, and stories are very much the same to some extent in thinking about characters' backstories, thinking about how their circumstances affect them, thinking about character arcs. They're very much the same in screenplays, novels, comics. Whatever medium your story is in, they are quite similar in that way. So yeah, you are more than welcome in either server. But yeah, you will tend to get more help in novels. I've got an echo for some reason. Yeah, you'll get more help in novels on WordCamp, which is our sister server. And then we're running some courses and events over there. But yeah, long story short, you're welcome in both places.
Okay. Thank you for having me, because I've been mulling over this for months now.
No problem. We're here to help. So join this group. This group meets like pretty often every week. So join
Yeah.
again if you need more help.
Yeah, so make sure you click the link in the chat here for the session next week. It's in a different place. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be back in this room. We alternate between the two servers. Yeah. Alright then, shall we open it back up to anyone else who's got any feedback they want for any disabled characters? And again, if there's anyone else on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook watching this, join us on the Discord and we will try and help you.
Um, so, Tallulah, are you making a novel or is it a podcast? Because I noticed in your intro you said that you host a podcast.
Oh no, it's in my novel, but my podcast is a commentary podcast, which I'm actually gonna Monday do a episode talking about at least the basics of the book without spoiling too much. But yeah, it's mostly just I do entertainment commentary, and I talk about writing a little bit, because on one of the episodes I did a character. Actually, I did my first 3 episodes just character analysis and how I think that how it could have been better written to show certain things. So that's
That does sound interesting.
thank you.
Lagging. Yeah, you're welcome. Am I lagging? Anyway, sorry, my Discord is freezing so much.
Yeah, Discord seems to be having a bit of a weird day today. I've got various issues happening. But I can hear you fine. Yeah, I think we'll do go back to talking about doing a character review as we were doing earlier. I think we were talking about Toph earlier from The Last Airbender, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm not sure if we finished talking about it or yeah.
Well, I said my piece. Good character, not really good representation.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. She was a very good character. She was, she had a lot of sarcasm, character her age would have, and she was a very funny character. But yeah, and you can't hear me, can you?
Definitely a very fun character. Probably the funnest one there, aside from like Uncle Iroh.
Can you hear me?
Um,
Yeah, you can now.
yeah. Well,
You
okay,
couldn't
I
hear
guess
me
Sokka
before,
is
could
here
you?
too. But yeah, she just sadly isn't good representation, which is okay. She's an earthbender. Like, they work a bit different. They're built different. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Like, I'm not like angry about it or too upset about it. It's just that that's just the way it is, I guess. Like, she's blind, but she's not really blind.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my Discord keeps cutting out. I can hear you, but my mic suddenly decides it won't hear me, and then YouTube can just to gaslight me. But yeah, I was saying yeah, she's a good character with that provides a lot of funny moments. But as you said, her plan is sort of used for comedy rather than for character, or that's not what I mean. But yeah, it's not always referenced as much as it could be.
Yeah. She is sort of like the one of the comic relief characters, to
Yeah,
be honest. But she's still like great, you know?
mm,
So one thing I did like about Toph specifically regarding her blindness is when she's in the sand, when they're in the desert, when Appa gets taken, she can't see through the sand very well. Like being in a different location, having a different terrain completely changes how she's able to function.
Yeah, that is a pretty good detail that they gave her because it's like it's not solid ground for her. She can't really, it's not like what she uses to bend or something. I don't know. Can she bend sand? I don't remember that episode super well, but I do remember that she couldn't see with it.
Right. She couldn't
Anyway,
see, she couldn't create a firm foundation.
yeah. I was also, yeah. And I liked seeing that because it's like she still has her difficulties. It's just very different from what a blind person would go through. It's not like very different. It's just more like a different flavor. It's like flavor text. Um, like a blind person could be like super familiar with one area and then like not with the next, and then you're just like, where the fuck am I? Um, happens to me all the time.
yeah. It's an
Um,
interesting
yeah.
uh not symbolism, that's the wrong word. But yeah, how, as you say, if you're blind and you're in a place where you can just about manage sometimes. And if you're not, and you're by yourself, how very different that is, how scary that is to have no idea where you are or where, like, I don't know what I'm doing, or,
Yeah.
that kind of,
Yeah.
um, yeah, how
I get by
debilitating
just
it can be,
like
not knowing where you are or being in a new
yeah, I get
place.
by just like following people or something, and like if I lose them, then I'm lost because I'm looking for them and I can't tell it's them.
Yeah,
It's very weird. But yeah, if I'm in like a new area or whatever, I need to I need to be with someone. I can't be by myself.
yeah.
I'm looking for right now. So yeah, poor Toph. Couldn't feel the sand.
Yeah.
Tough. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm calling you tough. Lasagna. I was wondering how how do you feel about the trope of blindness being portrayed by the milky white eyes?
I don't really like. I think it's kind of neat.
I think it's helpful, unrealistic, but helpful to know
Unrealistic, yeah.
sometimes.
It's not like a thing, but it looks cool. I'll give it that.
A guy
It
on YouTube, I've seen a blind critic who does have those eyes. It's just a very
Oh,
specific thing. I think it's like if it's from birth or something like that. If it's like a very direct like.
I do have it from birth myself, but I don't have milky white eyes. So I
Yeah,
guess
so
it's
it's a
like
I don't know
specific
the
be like
condition.
qualifier.
a certain
Yeah.
condition.
Yeah.
I got a
It's less so
picture of
milky white. It's more so that just there's no pigment in there. It's not really like the glaze. Like it's usually portrayed as like a glazed over thing. It's more so lack of pigment because pigment is what helps the eyes. Like that's why the colors are there. So
It's not always that
Yeah.
reason. There are other,
yeah.
other causes, but yeah.
For the type of blindness they portray in media that goes like milky white, it's usually like someone who has become blind, I think. Or yeah, Toph was born with it, but I don't think she it's like I know they're probably not thinking about the pigment thing, you know? I don't think they're thinking about it.
I think it's just about kind of shorthand. A shorthand to show blindness as like
Yeah.
a wheelchair is to show inability to walk kind of thing. So I posted a picture. This guy is blind. He I guarantee you've heard his voice. He is his name is Pete Gustin, I think. He's got that really deep voice that introduces movie trailers and blind. And so I think the milky white eyes is just shorthand, but it also doesn't showcase that a blind person doesn't have any external things. Like the only way you'd know if you met him on the street, the only way that you would know that he was blind is because of his cane or that he's walking with someone, his blind cane.
Or like there are external things that can signify blindness. Like my eyes move like fucking crazy. They go ballistic. And I don't know if that has anything to do with my blindness or just whatever condition I have, but it's just they move like they move a little crazy. Yeah. I have a strabismus,
There's
all this stuff.
there's a YouTuber, a comedian. He's a little raunchy, so just a warning. Even though like he's albino and he has like nystagmus.
Alright.
And he has a story about like a time where he got pulled over. He wasn't driving. They got pulled over, and he got a flashlight shine in his eyes, and because of his nystagmus, it hurt, and so he had to put his arms up, and like he didn't see it because he had his arms up and he was kind of like looking away from the light, but the cop was like worried and like nearly drew on him, like drew his weapon on him.
Oh my word.
And his friend had to be like, dude, no, he's. You already can't see. You're making it worse. Like he has a bunch of stories about like I don't know. He just has a ton of stories, and they're all really funny. He's a really good comedian. He was in he was Man-Bull in She-Hulk actually.
Nice.
If anyone's seen She-Hulk, he was Man-Bull.
I'm glad that someone was there with him if he Like, because that could have been really dangerous if he couldn't like say it himself or something, like
Yeah.
in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Scary
are
story, but
times
like I don't know why I went immediately to
where
that one now that I think about it. I just brought that up. I might have just soured the mood a little bit. Sorry.
nah, you're okay. But yeah, there are times where people with disabilities might, they like noticed by cops or something because they're acting a little funky. That's just how it is. I remember seeing this scene in Atypical where he's just like stimming and walking, and the cops are just like, he's on drugs, or something. And I was just like, that probably happens. That tracks. um. Anyway, uh, but yeah, my eyes move a whole bunch. That's an external factor of my blindness. There's a bunch of things up in there, and I don't want to talk about them, but like things be happening. Uh, but yeah, you could literally look at someone on the street and you wouldn't notice they were blind unless they were, um, having trouble or walking with their cane or seeing eye dog, like a service dog that would
A
have
guide
like
dog,
a
yeah.
vest on or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that shows a lot of conditions as well. A lot of disabilities. A lot of them are not immediately noticeable. I mean, if you think of disability or a disabled person, chances are you'll think of a wheelchair user, blind person, deaf person, paralysis, amputation, and not many people will go beyond that list. And actually, that's not true. There's thousands more disabilities that don't fit in those categories.
Yeah, I got me some ADHD, which, and for the purposes of this workshop, counts as a disability and is because, like, I can't function.
Yeah,
But I've been doing better these
neurodivergencies are
days.
a disability.
Yeah, I've been doing better. So that's good, but it's not visible, so nobody knew for like the longest time.
Yeah,
Nobody, nobody knew. They thought, does this have something to do with her blindness, or maybe because she's depressed or something?
mm,
But no one thought to think like, it might be ADHD. Nobody noticed or knew, even if like they noticed I was struggling really hard. Uh, so kind of unfortunate that it's not noticeable. And like, I feel like people think that, wow, everyone has ADHD these days, but I think it's just because they're just now getting diagnosis for it, so you think it's a
yeah,
bunch of people.
yeah. I think more people are recognizing that it's a
Happens when
disability.
like intense stigma is removed. And like, so people get diagnosis or they come out or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
And then you think it's a bunch of people, but it's not. And even if it was, mind your own business. Go away.
Here, here.
Yeah. But yeah. So things that aren't visible, it'll take such a long time for anyone to notice, even the person themselves. So it do be like that. Like, yeah, I had no idea. Um, I was gonna ask something, but like,
Go
what do you
ahead.
guys think of headcanoning characters as like having ADHD, autism, all this stuff? Because I like doing it.
Yeah. So I know that something that's done in the industry quite a lot recently is not making an autistic character, but making them autistic coded, for example. So if they get something, basically, if they get something wrong, people can't complain because people haven't actually said that they are autistic, and therefore they can't be blamed for bad representation. Which has its benefits and drawbacks.
Yeah. Drawback being that nobody fucking believes you and they think you're just projecting and being a bit like being cringe, being kind of cringe. In
being
reality,
desperate to have another
yeah,
disabled person. Yeah.
yeah,
But I think it is good because it does mean that more people are then willing to write about disabled people, even if they're not officially disabled. You know, so I think it is good ultimately. Yeah. So I mean, I will do it particularly with neurotypical people, not neurotypical, neurodivergent characters, or characters I think are neurodivergent. I don't know if someone says, I think this character's neurodivergent. I mean, you see that character in a different way, not because you see them differently, but just to go, oh yeah, that's the reason for, or yeah, that explains that weird behavior, or and I think it's just nice to see disabled characters in general.
right. I was reading a book recently, and this character, it just reminded me of my brain, and I was like, that character has ADHD. Just the jumping of topics and the loudness, and I was just like, yeah, okay, that tracks.
Yeah.
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 I'm on the fence about whether I like it or not. I kind of feel like I guess neurodivergent passing, or I I feel like that's more to real life. I feel like that is more how real life sees people, or how other people see neurodivergence. So I think that is true to life, and so that's great. On the other hand, it can also feel like, I guess, not addressing the needs of the person.
Right.
And the complications and the I don't know. I guess it's in the same way as like how like the LGBT is also kind of, we're not going to say they're gay, we're just going to kind of hint at it. And so I can see that as also being a bit of a negative.
Yeah, it is definitely frustrating, but I understand that they just can't say it because the censors or like the soccer moms. Oh no.
Exactly.
I get it, but I also like it's very frustrating that they just can't say it and they can't show what it means. And I understand like also in like cartoons, they live in a world where discrimination isn't necessarily like a thing that involves LGBTQ or disabled people. So it's like they get to just be and be in a happy world that probably has its own difficulties, but at the very least it's not directed at them. Um, so I'd understand if they don't write about the difficulties of being disabled or being part of the LGBTQ community, because it's sort of like they don't have it there. Or it is just a matter of like they can't show this because then that's too strong of an implication, and the soccer moms are gonna be like, "Oh no, how dare you show my children disabled people?" or something. So it's like something happened with My Little Pony where they had an animation glitch with a pony that was lovingly named by the fandom Derpy Hooves. She had walleye, she had a lazy eye, and soccer moms really wanted that to be fixed. So her name had to both be changed and also her eyes had to be fixed, but they ended up reverting that a while later so that she could, be. She was a background character, but she became very loved by the fandom and became like, I don't know, had her own episode at some point. Very cute.
Yeah,
Because
I
of
want to
like
comment
her
on
purpose.
her.
Yeah,
Her name got changed to
Muffin.
Muffins,
Yeah.
but everyone knows Derpy, Derpy Hooves. It was honestly really interesting, because like I guess I lived through all of that there, and it was really interesting to see the people who come out and say, "Oh my gosh, I have a lazy eye that like that." I'm-
Yeah,
like,
I felt fucking happy.
yeah, like the people who have those kinds of eyes, it seemed like they were really happy with her. Yes.
And I was like really happy to see it because I was like, that's me. Yeah. It was just really nice to see a character with lazy eye. So even though, yeah, you wouldn't know if a blind person is blind just by looking at them sometimes, maybe I do want to know they are blind by looking at them. So I can point at them and be like, I have weird eyes too. It's nice.
I mean,
I
that's
think it's nice.
an interesting point. There's a lot of different ways to um portray the blindness or the derpy eyes. Um the this the picture I posted of Pete Gustin, and I put up a link to his YouTube channel. He specifically talks about how, yeah, he can look straight ahead now and make eye to eye contact even though he can't see anything. But he had to specifically train himself to do that, because he would kind of cock his head like 3/4 of the way, because I guess he could see a little bit peripherally, but the whole like there was a big black hole directly in his eyesight. So when talking to a person, he would see just a black hole of a head. And so he would turn, so in one way to be able to see it peripherally, but also to hear better. And he had to teach himself not to do that, and to just look at the black hole.
Yeah,
That's
that's interesting.
terrifying.
Because I know of another blind person who does that. Who will look up and to the left. I think. Hi Amanda. Yeah, will look up and to the left in order to see peripherally, and people get really angry at her because she's doing that. But actually, all she's doing is trying to look at you. But because you think that her look at you means looking directly, you're going to get angry with her for looking. Ironically.
Yeah, I remember like my teacher had no idea if I was paying attention in class because I was looking to the side, but in reality I was just trying to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's just how it be sometimes, but it sucks that they got mad at her for just trying to fucking see.
Yeah. And like getting really aggressive as well because of it. It's just like why?
God, what a useless thing to get aggressive about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just eye contact.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't make eye contact simply because I'm anxious, so I look down instead. It's nothing to do with my eyes. I'm sure people think I'm weird, but it's also like they've never gotten aggressive with me at the very least. So lucky me, I guess. And I feel bad for anyone who's had to deal with aggression just because they didn't want to look into people's faces or that they couldn't.
Hmm.
Extensive talk about blindness, my forte. Thanks, guys. I had things to say today.
Yeah.
Come on, you got stuff to say every day.
You do. You get a lot of
Thank
knowledge.
you. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Oh, go on, Willow.
I was just going to kind of go back to Toph in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And like that kind of brings up the well, as Lasagna mentioned, how she's not good representation. And so that kind of brings up the trope of disabilities are superpowers kind of thing. Her blindness specifically, Toph's blindness specifically led to her abilities. It is because of her blindness that she's able to listen to the ground. It's disabilities are not superpowers. Like, I guess
I have a question about that trope. I mean, because it seems like in a lot of superhero movies and a lot of like it sounds like it's a really big misconceptions that the disability maybe isn't the superpower, but it leads to a superpower. But I kind of feel like there's some truth in that because like when you're not focusing on your vision, you're going to focus more on your hearing. Or if you're not if you don't have good hearing, you might focus on other senses. So I feel like there's some truth in it, but what's the balance? I have no idea, but that's a really interesting. I'm curious what the thoughts are on that because I would totally make that mistake.
I don't
probably
think my hearing got better.
Right.
I think I just got more alert to sounds. Like I could hear a cricket in like a fucking Walmart and I'd be like, what's that sound? What's that?
Yeah, but awareness, whether your hearing got better or you became more aware, it's like, I don't know how much we could, like, for the layman, they would think of that as the same thing.
I think it's to the point of overcompensates to the to kind of the extreme of being a benefit.
Right. Yeah. It's like toxic positivity a little bit, like in this society and day and age, like I feel like a little bit tell me what you think about this, because I identify as being like on the outskirts, the very edge of the autism spectrum. And I see this a lot nowadays as I follow a bunch of people on Twitter that are autistic and it's like, autism is my superpower. But I'm like, yeah, but which I think is great. I think it's great to embrace it. I think embracing everything is actually essential for our mental health, but just sort of embracing it all across the board and saying that's my superpower, it's like it negates the tragic aspects of having autism as well. So I'm also curious about that. I talk about it a lot, which is why I'm curious, because I'm like, I don't want to talk about it in a way that's not mindful.
I don't know if I'm autistic, but I know I have ADHD, and I know that when I found out that I had ADHD, I sort of like cried because I was like, why didn't they tell me earlier? I could have avoided all this shit and all that.
Right.
Like, there's definitely tragic aspects, and I think they should be acknowledged and also embraced. Like, it's not just a superpower, it's also your vice. You should embrace all of it rather than just embracing the good things, because it's you. It's a part of you.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like this very fine balance because, yeah, and it's almost like swinging to extremes. So like, yeah, it's interesting. Huh.
Yeah,
Like,
and like why I like Toph as a character, she's not good representation simply because it overcompensates for her, and she can basically see like even better than the average person.
right. And that's the toxic positivity thing that I've been noticing just in society in general, where it's like, let's look at the positive, but then it's like it almost feels like you're not being seen, like metaphorically. You're not being acknowledged for all that you have to deal with by just being like, well, look at the positive. And it's like, yeah, but not everything is roses all the time, and it's interesting. But so
Yeah.
I'm curious, is it Jediah? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Jediah.
Jediah. It's really
Oh.
did you find it, was there any kind of like, was it cool to see a blind character in a TV show, or what, did it rub you the right way in any ways, like just having representation, or was it like mostly frustrating, or just curious, like?
It was pretty neutral. I liked that Toph was blind, but like because she could basically see, I don't think I felt anything. I think I was just like, she's different from me.
I know. Yeah. And it's like I'll see a character who has some sort of emotional issue like me, but then it's like her best friend is the wealthiest man in the world, and it's like, well, that doesn't help make me feel represented, because it kind of like, exactly, it's like the same, it's a similar kind of thing where you're like, yeah, but she's basically more powerful than everybody else. I still don't feel like I relate with the protagonist, because she has this huge flaw, but then this huge benefit overshadows the flaw and saves the day, and I'm like, okay, but that's not how I feel. Yeah, that's so interesting. Wow. Yeah, I've had that kind of thing, and mostly with like real like emotional issues, but interesting. Sorry, go ahead if anybody else has a response. Go ahead. I didn't mean to jump on and start dominating.
You're good. Something you guys said reminded me. Oh, this is Tallulah, by the way. I was listening, and something you guys said reminded me of when I was told a fellow neurodivergent, for me, I have ADHD, that being neurodivergent does make us not feel functional in the world built for neurotypical, but being neurodivergent is kind of fun, especially when we can't, because we can't be fake for anyone. Yeah, although I feel like I can be fake as fuck, because, like, masking exists, and I don't want people to think I'm weird.
Interesting.
Because I have random outbursts.
But
that's yeah.
True. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, just that
I'm
it
good.
is. I was thinking about that. I think it was after maybe the first disability workshop. I missed the last one or two, but how there is an aspect of it being relative to what the world is built for. So it's like the world, like, it's hard to see, like, yeah, the world is built for neurotypical, whatever that range is. And so, yeah, if the world was built for more types of people, maybe it wouldn't even feel as much like a disability, right? It's almost like it's harder it's just interesting that how context is so important. Maybe it was when we were talking about the fairy with the wings, and how Willow was saying the real, like, what would have been really inspiring to see would be if they had changed the world to fit her special needs, versus like there being a balance, rather than just, oh, she has her wings and now she's like everybody else because she was positive and brave, and now it's all over, versus like having, that's just such another interesting element to it, is like I was super emotional, and it really crying at like kind of inappropriate ages, in classes, or, and the world wasn't built for that. And now I think people are more accommodating, like crying at work is a little bit more acceptable. And, but it's like, yeah, is that even, if the world was
Right.
built to handle it, would it even be considered divergent? Or, it's just it's interesting.
True, that is an interesting thing to think about. Like, if the world were a little more accommodating to me and I would have found out that I had clear, or that the classes were more individualized for, people, where I could, just actually get help and actually learn and do my work and all this stuff, then I wouldn't have felt so different and so dysfunctional in the first place.
Right, right.
Yeah, and yeah, Barbie Fairytopia, because I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about.
What was that? Say that again.
Anyway, I have the DVD for that thing you were talking about, the fairy,
Oh.
Barbie Fairytopia. I have the
Oh.
DVD. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I know Willow talked
In
about
that because I did like it. Barbie movies are iconic. Anyway, but yeah, the world isn't built for us, and it's not very accommodating. And I used to have these moments in class because of all my mental issues and all that stuff, where I would get so overwhelmed that I'd just like get up and walk away. I just But yeah, it's just sort of very challenging to feel extremely different and not understood in a world that you want, like you live in. You live here. You
Right.
want people to understand you, but they don't. So you're overwhelmed and you can't take it anymore sometimes.
Mm.
It's hard.
I have a question, just curious, what so I was thinking, because in the book I'm writing, the main character is underground in tunnels and she has to find light sources in order to see, but there's parts where she's groping around literally in the dark. And I was just curious, I'm not writing this, so this other idea came to mind, but if there was a character who had been used to being blind for her whole life, and then suddenly, let's say, the sun gets blocked out in the sky, and now she's the only one who's attuned her awareness to sounds better. So now it's almost like she's the best person for this situation. Is that something that would be inspiring to see? Just out of curiosity, like to see where actually it's not that the disability gets magically, cured or bypassing it, but where it actually is a strength given a totally different situation or world. Just static. What would that, how would that
I
guess
think
I feel pretty.
go ahead.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh, okay. I think I'd feel pretty cool. I'd feel like, yeah, fuck all y'all. I could do
Cool,
it.
cool. Okay, cool.
I feel pretty cool. Yeah, Willow, you go.
So I think it's a matter of balance.
Yeah.
That so maybe it doesn't. I mean, maybe something is able to kind of a disability is able to become a superpower kind of thing. Okay, but what kind of disabilities does that have?
Mhm.
So, for example, let's see. I'm going to use a prosthetic limb as just an example, because I follow this YouTuber named Footless Joe, and she talks about her prosthetic and her leg and such. And one of the things that she talks about is like the maintenance of the leg and the and how the fit of her prosthetic leg changes throughout the day, and how if there's any kind of little thing, a pinprick of a hole in her special sock, it can cause a lot of pain and discomfort. So it's not just that something negates a disability or it turns it into a superpower, but it would also maybe create some other kind of disadvantage. So, okay, so now you don't have to deal with this, but now you've got this kind of new problem that may or may not be bigger.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say that blindness isn't really darkness per se. It could be, I'm pretty sure, but for the most part, people can still have like a sliver of sight, like me. I still have sight in like one eye. It's blurry as hell, but like it works. So even if like the world goes dark, it would go dark for them too, and they'd be like, "Oh, what the fuck? I was relying on that."
Right. It's almost like part of the problem is just people oversimplify and don't do their research, and that's kind of almost that's something that kind of would rub the wrong way. It's like, do your homework for heaven's sakes and think about more of the elements than looking at the bigger picture kind of.
Like it's just a whole spectrum of sight, and you need to figure out like which condition you want to represent and like how you want to do it and just like how it actually works. I would talk about mine, but it makes me I would talk about mine, but it makes me cry every time.
Oh.
I can't really talk about whatever the hell mine is because it's just sort of too sensitive a topic. Anyway. But if you ever need like a reference, I could try. If you want to make a blind character, then I will try to help you.
Okay.
Because I am blind. Yeah.
Or like reading to see if I'm describing something.
Yeah.
Mindfully. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Hi Dan. I see that you're here now. Welcome.
Yeah, it did not get an alert. Dead.
Yeah. That's okay. We're kind of done for the day, but I do want to continue our discussions because I like them.
As do I. I still want to also learn a bit about it.
I think Joel
may discuss what you wish.
Yeah, I think Joel said we could keep talking here rather than having to.
We're good. No, I'm back. I don't have to go for another half an hour-ish. So you are more than welcome to keep talking about disability if you would like. Because it's something that I'm passionate about and I'm never going to say no to, so.
Thank you.
I'm passionate too, apparently.
That's good. It's important about,
Thank you for the role too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you already had actually, so you should have got notified. But I tried to make sure that anyone who
just didn't get an alert on my phone, which I usually do for these clubs and events.
Yeah, just you know what? I think Discord's having problems on their end because my Discord's been a bit funny and Lasagna's been a bit funny. Not Lasagna, but Lasagna's Discord has been a bit funny.
Mine's always funny. Always fucking funny, dude.
Weird day for Discord.
Any more questions? I will answer them all, even if it's not about me.
I will take on the world.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I was away from the keyboard for a couple of minutes, so I don't know where we got to when the conversation went.
We were discussing like our disabilities, superpowers, and we were all just like, no. And also discussed like the heightened senses that you may get if you are blind, and just Amanda's block out the sun idea, and a blind person probably navigating better, and we talked about that and how that works. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a
How
recap.
how do blind people think about Daredevil, the superhero? He is superhero who's blind.
I did just hear about him, and it seems he's similar to Toph in the idea that this character isn't actually, well, like, good representation, because they can basically see with their other, like, senses in, like, an over-exaggerated, heightened way, instead of actually being blind and having the difficulty of being blind and having, like, the normal heightened senses of, like, maybe you're more alert to sound, like I am, because, like, I could hear a cricket in a store and I could cry about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that the
going-
sense that they overcompensate in this way that makes them essentially able to see better than even the average person, and so
Yeah.
in that sense, it's not representative, because it's like how toxic positivity is for people that are depressed. It's like, you know, or like, oh, you know, you can just, yeah, just
Stop being sad, Brooke.
Go ahead.
No, I was just like being stop. I was making fun of the toxic positive. Just
Oh,
stop
yeah.
being sad.
Yeah.
I got, like, a self-help book from my sister once, which was like, how to not be sad, and I was just like, thanks, I love it.
Congratulations, you solved everything forever, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Talking about heightened senses, I'm not blind or deaf or anything, but I am a wheelchair user, and I've noticed that I am a lot more aware of my surroundings than other people, and I've worked out why. The reason is, as a wheelchair user, cracks in the road and bumps will affect me more than an average person. You know, your legs have shock absorbers, my wheelchair doesn't. So I'm constantly looking at the path and where I'm going. So when I'm out on long country walks, I hate it because all I'm doing is looking at smooth ground for tree roots and pebbles, anything that could tip my chair over. So I'm basically watching mud for 2-3 hours, which isn't very fun. But anyway, so I'm watching the path constantly.
Yeah, heightened.
I'm watching
Yeah.
other people because if you crash into them, even if they're not looking where you're going, if you so much as touch them, it is always your fault because you have the heavy vehicle. Basically, it's a big metal thing, and people don't like it when it crashes into their legs. So even if it's their fault, it ends up being your fault. And what else am I looking at? I'm just basically, and because you're already looking at so many things, you're then using your ears to hear cars behind you, and just so I am hyper aware naturally. You know, I've developed my senses a lot more so that I'm more aware of my surroundings. And I would say that I've done it to the extreme, to the point where I just being outside, I start to get burnout because I'm just constantly over aware of absolutely everything within a 10-meter radius, which is difficult in the city because there's a lot of people.
Yeah, it sounds really difficult, even if it sounds like, you know, wow, heightened senses, so cool. In reality, they're not that cool. They make you
'cause
anxious.
You get you tire yourself out mentally just by going outside.
Right.
Yeah, and like for me, I can't like stay alone for too long, or can't stay at home alone for too long, because like I'll think someone's breaking into my house because I keep hearing a bunch of noises.
Oh yeah. It's funny how there's always noises.
I do
Like,
wish I could remember.
when you're
Yeah,
home alone,
there's
that's when
always
there's always lots of noise at home.
Yeah, and
There's
like,
a
I hear it
creaking.
all. I hear it all. I hear everything at night. I hear everything all day. And then I go outside. I hear a cricket. I hear random noises that I can't explain. And if I can't explain them, or I don't know what they are, then I'm going to panic.
Mm.
In
So I guess you
any
can't see
case,
what's making the noises.
Yeah, I can't see it, so I asked my mom, like, what's that? What's that? And she's like, it's just a cricket.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. It's a little odd, but I'm just more alarmed, and I don't know if it's anxiety or if it's blindness. It could be both.
Yeah.
In any case, right. What was I going to say? I do wish I had more spatial awareness because tripping over things and not it's because I have no fucking depth perception, right? So I
Yeah.
trip over ledges. I fall down like little slopes. Like I have to be
Mhm.
very careful with where I step, but like I
Yeah.
can't see it all the time, so I have to have someone point it out for me at times.
Yeah.
So it's just it's scary because we went on a hike once, right? And well, I couldn't see anything. So I cried my eyes out because I couldn't see at all and I kept falling down and it was just so terrifying going on this
Yeah.
and I was like so scared that I sobbed and I was like, I want to go back.
Yeah.
And I'm
I've
just
been
like
in similar
a
place
grown
as
woman
well.
crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did that too, where we went on an inaccessible walk, and my dad's constantly having to lift up my wheelchair, and I got really angry. Not, but my dad's lifted me up, no problem. But it wasn't that it wasn't accessible. It's that when dad does that, you lose your independence, and so every time he's helping me, I'm actually slightly losing my independence, and part of me is like, oh, I'm an inconvenience, and it even though it wasn't necessarily a problem, to me it was because, yeah, it was. I like to be independent, as I'm sure pretty much everyone does. And so when you're losing your independence or when you're being an
Right.
inconvenience to someone, you don't like that feeling, you know?
Like, my family had to help me out a lot while we were on this hike. Like, hold my hand, hold my arm. I
Yeah.
couldn't see, so I don't know why they brought me, but whatever. Um, and totally didn't fuck up my knee or anything.
See.
In any case, like, it was just a frustrating journey, and we did end up going back, in which I still had to be held onto very tightly because, like, I still couldn't see, and there were still slopes everywhere, and there was still, like, a ledge, like a little
Yeah.
cliff right next to us, and I was like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
So never take me
I
on a hike. And that's the end of the story.
I absolutely feel where you guys are coming from. Like so much hear about the oh well, if you're depressed, you need to go outside and get some air, and fresh air will do you great and all that. And it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
That advice comes from a good place. But yeah, I tried that, and just going for a walk outside. I went to a park. A nice, relaxing park, sat on a bench, and it was just such a miserable experience. In part, I could hear kids playing the soccer behind me. There are people walking their dogs. Like I was just hearing every single little thing, and it was so overwhelming. The rustling of the leaves, and it just made me feel all the more alone and
Yeah.
all the worse because I couldn't relax. I couldn't enjoy the air. Just so many noises going around. And I ran back home and I never went out again. Well, not quite like that, but basically, yeah. I haven't been to that park since. And it's such a beautiful place.
I get what you mean. When I worked the courage to like go to like a school club or something, and then I realized I have no friends, and I'm just very alone. And like I try to go out and be active because like they tell
We're
me
all
to.
friends.
We're all friends here. Like that's why I'm chronically online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't I don't go outside, but I do love being around people, despite the fact that offline I can't actually talk to them unless you're like, I don't know, a doctor or a bus driver treating me like a child. um, but when I face my peers, I'm like tongue-tied. I can't find out what to say. I'm doing my best. Like one time I told this girl, "I like your outfit." She was like, "Thanks." And then we never spoke again because that's all I could say. Um, do my best. I'm really trying out here, but having like such anxiety makes it so I can't talk to anyone very well. Uh, so I do feel very alone. I do feel very lonely because I know I can't communicate as well as I should, and I cannot physically touch you guys or see you guys, so it makes me feel very sad sometimes.
Mm.
Loser. Um, so yeah, it's
Anybody
sort of
else?
like
Did anybody else when the pandemic? Did anybody else like when the pandemic hit? Be like for me, I was like, now everybody understands how I feel. Like everybody
Yeah.
was, you know, basically because I mean, for me, it was, you know, yeah, I do take longer to make friends in new places, but I had just moved or I had been somewhere and I just got really isolated. It wasn't like I've dealt with it like to such an extreme, but up right before the pandemic, I had just gotten so isolated. And then when it hit, I almost felt more relaxed because suddenly everybody was in the same situation as me. I don't know if anybody else felt that. Like I was like the whole world slowed down all of a sudden. And now it was moving at a pace that I could keep up with. I don't know if anybody else felt that. I mean, I know there's a lot of negatives about it, but
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
I
curious.
do
But I
feel
mean,
like
I
that's like a
was
common.
I don't know any positives about being under lockdown.
well. I think that for some disabled people there were. So for some people, for example, who have autism, who struggle with, for example, eye contact and struggle with, interpreting body language and facial expressions and things like that. Having classes online meant
Yeah.
you're not having to try and decrypt every bit of non-verbal communication because
Right.
almost everything is verbal. For those who have anxiety or for whatever reason, if you're staying at home, you don't have that anxiety about going out and but so yeah, I think that for and wheelchair users as well. So, I'll take my friend Julia for example. She had a long way. Well, it wasn't actually a long way to travel, but just because of her disability, it took her a lot longer and was a lot more stressful, and meant that rather than starting the day at X time, each college day was essentially 4 hours longer than her peers.
Mhm.
So online lockdown has been helpful for some people.
Yeah.
It was COVID obviously was not a good thing.
Right.
But for some people it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when I took online classes while I still struggled with my work and maybe it made my work ethic like even worse. I was able to participate more in class in real time and I was able to have discussions with people and being like I can't speak. I can't say anything. I'm looking at the clock, it's ticking and like I had a conversation topic in my head for like an hour and I didn't say it. With online school, I was able to like, say words. Though I do feel like being under lockdown made me feel stressed out because I was like, now even if I wanted to go out, I can't go out. Dang it.
Right. Right.
I just felt a little option was taken away from me.
Yeah, for me there was some sort of, not that I wished anything bad on anyone, but there was this sense of like, now people understand how alone I've felt. like just because I do thrive in person action in person settings. When they're healthy, right? I mean, I think we all kind of could say that, right? Like when they're healthy, it's good to be in person when there's really nice people. And like I've had a job environment that was really, really nurturing. And then the one that I was at was really toxic. And so when the pandemic hit and I started working from home, my whole nervous system just relaxed. And it's not that, of course, I love being around people, good,
Yeah.
nice people, not that anyone was bad. It was just it just wasn't comfortable for me. Cause I mean, I know people one-on-one at my job. And of course, I don't have any grudges against anyone, but it just wasn't attuned to me. And so, yeah. And like, yeah, there was something where, yeah, I felt really alone. And so suddenly the world was feeling alone. And then that's where suddenly there were all these online and Zoom meetings that were suddenly like my needs for social interaction actually got met during the pandemic, because suddenly I started connecting with people all over the country that were like me over Zoom. And then, yeah, it's interesting how, yeah, like when society becomes more amenable, or, when there's more things in place to meet our needs, then however we feel different, we don't feel different anymore, because there's all these other people that have similar things. And I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I don't wish the pandemic on, I don't wish for that. Of course there were all these bad things, but there were all these things put in place that really met new needs, I feel like. And like going to the supermarket became really stressful for me. And not that I couldn't have ordered online before, but suddenly I learned how. And I was like, oh, or picking up. And anyways, yeah, just interesting. I mean, there's so many nuances. It's not like I can say it was all good or bad, but
It is sort of like that. It's a feeling I feel like most people have had at like some point in their lives, even if they know it's like, this is wrong, I shouldn't feel this way, but like it just, I want it. You get it in that regard. Like,
yeah, it's not like I'm
I
happy
guess,
that's bad for others. It
yeah,
just,
it's not like you're happy that it happened to people.
yeah, but like, and then they're like different, like, it's like just how culture changes to be friendly to different types of people. Like, this is a silly example, but like back in the olden day, being voluptuous and round was a sign of wealth, right? Being like on the heavier side was actually like, oh, you must be wealthy. I'm attractive. And then now, right, it's like, oh, if you're really in shape, you have enough money to buy a trainer. It's like just society, like you plop someone down in one period of time and you could have a very different experience than another period of time. And it's not like saying, oh yeah, this period's better than that period, but it could be better for me, or better for you.
Yeah. Like, I feel like society sort of just like works to create these differences between them. So we're all just fucking stressed out now.
Yeah, the competition part is
well, it's not like anything that we have is trying to help bring us together.
Yeah. So we're very separate, and there's a real lack of empathy In the world,
Mm.
I've been finding out like more and more, and I just look and I'm just like, no one can like empathize with like anyone here, and it's just very depressing because if we could just empathize with each other, we could probably work to settle these, like to work these things out, or at least like feel for the people who are getting fucked over, you know? At least like show your sympathy, show your support or whatever. But no, we just gotta be like we just gotta be like, why are they whining? They're elitist, etc., etc. And it's just so frustrating and I just feel so other, you know? I don't know. I don't know what I'm
That's
talking about. I'm sad.
that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy this group and well this Discord channel. I've gotten to know a bunch of you over the time, and
Mm.
I'm closer to you guys than I am with anybody in my family and in my real life.
Yeah.
And so I've found a lot of kind of solace online, and particularly um, with you guys on this server.
Yes, it's same. Discord and ScriptCamp has been life-changing for me. I don't think of it as social media because you're always interacting and communicating equally with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like you're talking, someone responds, whereas social media is I'm posting, how many people see me and like me, you know,
Yeah.
and if you comment on the post, it's still their post. Whereas here, I just feel like it's all very
Here you actually
collaborative.
have to sort of interact with the person
Yeah,
in a
this is
real meaningful way and not with like a persona.
right, right. You know, and I know people, yeah, and it's just, it's such a, and I know my brother was very much into online stuff before it became really mainstream. And like he even did like online dating before that was like socially normal. And
Yeah.
he was just more of an introvert and shy. And
I met my fiance online.
yeah, now it's very normal. Like now I'm meeting people that way. But like back before the day, like even people that were in chat rooms and online all the time, you're engaging in a much more, I feel like, meaningful way than when social media is just a different thing. And Discord, I just feel it's not it's not media. We don't see ads. People are not making money with ads in front of our face. There's not an algorithm in ScriptCamp that's telling us what we're seeing. We literally give ourselves, you know, we tag ourselves with our interest groups, so we kind of get to control it. But basically, it's a very different model. It's just the whole algorithm and the science behind something like Discord is completely different than social media, like the way it operates. And I had no idea how much online community could be so fulfilling once I stopped doing social media and came over here.
I completely agree. And I also want to add that because of the nature of this particular kind of server or community, we see inside of each other's minds like a lot more in depth. We are sharing our creative process and our imagination. Like, is there anyone else in the world that you go to and you talk about your uh like your feelings coming out, just the portrayal of your identity being put into a story of other characters and other worlds? Like, I feel like I'll be honest, I don't talk about my project with pretty much anyone in the real world, and not much. Or if I do, it's just once because I don't want to bother people. I don't want everyone has their own things that are going on. I want to bother them with my special passion project. But here in this community,
That's where
Yeah, but here everybody is a passion project.
exactly, and everybody is into writing, and so we all want to hear each other's writing. Yeah.
Much as I sometimes you get so distant, or when I hear about I get a lot of anxieties when it's like, oh man, this when people are like talking about these big name writers who are like, oh god, what am I and what have I done with my life? But they're still passion projectors. I'm tired about them all the time though.
I do get what you mean. It's way harder to talk to people like offline than it is online, especially like when you don't know if they're like gonna be interested in what you're gonna say. And it's hard to tell them about your feelings because they're just like, I don't want to like squick them out. But for some reason, it's easier to be much more open online because you're like, haha, they don't know me. But it's also like they know me.
Yeah, there's a little bit. I also think like Nacho and Connor really are like so key in setting the tone of the server too. Like they're so inclusive, and Nacho's just such a good listener, and like
That's
that.
probably one of the problems I had with the Hive.
Yeah, I mean,
I did complain a lot that I wasn't doing good enough, fast enough. That was 3 years ago, and I'm still banned for it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's just they're very welcoming, and and the thing with Connor has so much just sort of realism without being too negative, because it's like
he's not going to turn me into an outliner though. Sorry. I try. I just don't. I do better when I'm unrestricted, when I march to my own drum beat, sort of.
Yeah.
Or I create better.
Yeah, same.
I getcha.
I'm going to agree.
Outlines. Speaking of outlines, I was trying.
I don't want to tell him though.
I was trying Connor's method in the TV pilot boot camp, and it's not working for me. It just doesn't work for me. I am much more of a pantser. That's just the way I write.
I tried to start outlining, and something really interesting happened. So there's this pattern that I didn't notice popped up within my this one scene and within the backstory of my character at the same time. So my character had 3 victims that he got away with cleanly. The 4th victim, though, passion kicked in, passion took over, and he was caught for it. The way my story works is that people have interviews where they recall their run-ins with this character. They recall their run-ins with this killer. And I wrote a scene in which I didn't even notice that 4 people die on screen. 3 of them are done subtly. They're done efficiently. But then the 4th one is done out of passion. And yet, now, the character is getting away with it. In this scene, the character gets away with the 4th passionate kill. And I didn't even notice that. And I wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for like outlining it, putting it down, and then seeing 4 and then 4, like, because right after that part, we go into the backstory of the killer. We go into the backstory of who he is without really knowing it yet. Like, oh, it might be this person. But already there's a synchronicity before he's even showed up. And I really wanted my character to feel like a ghost on the movie. We don't know if it's Charlie yet, but it feels like it might be. And the question that he even might be like the guy just lingers over the rest of the film. And that's exactly what's happening, and I didn't notice it until I outlined it.
Yeah, I notice patterns now more with outlining. Like I'll see, I'm like, oh, what I normally have at the climax is actually the midpoint. Or like I notice like, oh, I see where I'm going wrong, because I feel like I see that like the way that I go astray tends to be pretty consistent. It does help. That's interesting. I think that is, yeah, a byproduct of the outlining. Like even if you overlay the outline after you write, it's like you can pick up like, oh, I see what's going on. I see where it helps at least fine tune.
I'm going to, sorry, I'm going
Mhm.
to interrupt
No, go ahead.
because I love this conversation and I love talking about disability, and so I don't want to stop you. What I'm going to do, however, is I'm going to do our outro for the stream, and you guys are more than welcome to stay in the voice channel. I'm going to stop streaming to YouTube. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us this week. We'll be back next week on WordCamp for Disability in Fiction, and yeah. So again, we'll be working on different different disabled characters in fiction, in particular, whether that's novels or it's comics, that sort of thing. So please do bring your work along to that, and then hopefully the week after that we'll be back on ScriptCamp doing disability in screenwriting, and we will hopefully be looking at dissociative identity disorder, which is I would argue one of the most misunderstood and misrepresented conditions in the media right now. So yeah, I hope you can join us for that. And the link for that will be in the description or in the chat rather for that. So hope to see you very soon.
Thanks, Joel.